Welcome back to Cooking with Carper. Today we are finishing a 2-video series. It's our first lab for Foods 1, and we're going to be creating and making our quick stir fry. In the last video, we prepared our vegetables. We were working on knife skills. Now we're going to use those veggies and those knife skills and apply it to a dish. This is one of the favorite dishes of my students. Really easy to do. It's going to be a nice one-pan meal that can feed 4 really easily. It's part culinary skill, part convenience foods, and we're bringing it together and I'll make it really good. So let's look at what we're going to be using for our recipe. The ingredients that we're going to be using for our quick stir fry is as follows. We have chicken, our vegetables that we've prepared, celery, onions, and carrots, vegetable oil, soy sauce, water, and then a package of ramen noodles. The meat that I've chosen is leg quarters. So these are legs and thighs. This is something that I have on hand. Chicken breast would work just fine. It's whatever cuts of meat that you would like. So now let's look at our utensils. The utensils that we're going to be using is also relatively simple. We need a cutting board and chef's knife to prepare our chicken. We need a skillet, a wooden spoon, a measuring spoon to measure our vegetable oil and soy sauce, and then a strainer to be able to drain off the liquid from our meat as we are cooking it. So with that said, let's go ahead and start with preparing our meat. The meat that I'm using, again, like I said before, is going to be chicken quarters. So this is a leg and thigh that are still connected. Now I have to do a little extra work to prepare this for our stir fry. If you're using chicken breast, you could just cut this down, dice it down into pieces that you'll be able to use in your food. I'm breaking these down again a little bit more because it's what I have on hand. And the wonderful thing about cooking is that it's very versatile. You can substitute things and use what you have at home and in your freezer, in your fridge, in your dishes. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of that versatility. Okay, so first thing I do is I'm going to separate the leg and the thigh. From here, clean down, or take off the skin. We're not going to use the skin in this particular dish. Okay. Just kind of pull that up. And I'm just going to stand that up quick. And take the meat off of the bone. Now, of course, there's some stuff left here. That's alright. I'm not going to get real finicky with it. And then, of course, we have our thigh here. For the thigh, you just have this one bone that runs through the middle of all this wonderful meat. So if you can just kind of cut down one side of the bone, kind of free it up a little bit, then all you have to do is kind of feel through and just kind of clear the meat off of that bone. So don't press too tight or hard against that bone though. We don't want to dull our knife too much. Go through a little extra fat that we don't really need. Take off this skin. Now if you're interested in how I'm doing this and cutting up the chicken, if you look on the channel, there is a video for Foods 2 that shows how to fabricate a chicken. And there I go through all the different techniques of taking a whole bird and cutting it down into the various usable cuts. Okay, and there we have our thigh. Okay, so now I have this nice pile of meat. I'm just going to take this, slice it down into strips, and then I'll take those strips, pile them up together, and we're going to cut these very carefully into roughly 1/2 inch cubes. If you notice, I'm not being really careful in terms of making everything exactly the same. Meat's kind of loose. I'm not too worried if it's exactly perfect. I just kind of want it all to be roughly the same size. Okay, and there's our meat ready to go. Now we can move on to our next step, which is going to be to heat our pan. But first, before I do that, I'm going to go wash my hands really well with hot soapy water. Now that we have our meat cut up, we can move on to cooking. So I want to get my pan heated. You see I kind of have a little work area going. Pan's on the stove. I'm going to turn it on to medium heat. And I'm going to let this heat up with nothing in it for roughly 1.5 to 2 minutes or so. I'm working on gas, so it doesn't need quite as long. If you're working on electric, give it a good 3 minutes or so to really kind of heat up. The purpose of allowing the pan to heat up is that it's going to cause the molecules of the metal to expand, and it's going to give us a more non-stick surface. Also, it's going to give us the browning and the searing that we're looking for on our food. So if we don't have a hot pan when we start, then we don't have quite the results that we're shooting for. Okay, so let this go for just a little bit of time. The pan's been heating for just a little while, so let's go ahead and add in our tablespoon of oil. We don't need a lot, just enough to keep it from sticking to the surface. Okay, the oil should hit the pan, and you should notice that it kind of becomes more like liquid. It should move around the pan real nicely, and I like to do this to get the bottom of the pan coated. Now let's add that chicken. Now, of course, we're working with raw chicken, so be mindful of what you're doing with the cutting board and your knife. We want to make sure that we're limiting and preventing all cross-contamination. Okay, so the sizzle that we're hearing is good. It's what we want. Kind of move the chicken around just a little bit. Now, let it just kind of sit in the pan for just a moment. Our pan's nice and hot, and the chicken is going to want to stick to the pan right away. So what we do is we allow it to cook, and we allow it to brown, and after a minute or two, once we have that nice crust that starts to develop on the chicken, it will release from the pan on its own. If we immediately start stirring this and messing with it, it's going to stick. It's going to leave a lot of bits stuck to the bottom of your pan, and it's not going to feel like what it should. Okay? Be patient. Now we can go ahead and stir. See how nicely that moves up. It doesn't stick to the pan. Now we're looking for a little bit of golden brown to start forming on our chicken. We're looking for it all to kind of become opaque on all sides and kind of turn white. We're not super concerned if we're cooking the chicken all the way through at this point. It will go back in the pan later and continue to cook with the liquid and with the ramen noodles. So taking it off a little bit early at this stage will make for a better cooked chicken once it's finished later on. So being aware of what you're doing throughout the entire process and knowing your full recipe before you get started is really helpful for something like this. As that chicken cooks, it starts producing some moisture, and that moisture is going to keep our chicken from browning up really nicely. It's going to create more of a steaming effect rather than a searing, sauteing effect. And that's what's going to keep us from that nice, like, golden brown, seared look. Now, that's okay. So, again, all of my sides of chicken are kind of cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and kill the heat for now. And I'm going to take this and pour it into my strainer in the sink, get rid of that extra moisture, and set the chicken to the side. And we'll start cooking our vegetables. Now bring our pan back to our stove. Turn the heat back on, medium-high. We're not worried about cleaning our pan. We've got some nice flavors happening from the chicken that has already started to cook. So now we're going to use that and whatever moistures and fats left over from the vegetable oil to cook our veggies. Okay? So all of our veggies go into the pan. Again, you should hear that nice sizzle. Give it a quick little stir, get it even in the pan a little bit. This is where you can get a little fancy if you would like as well. Shake that pan, and that's going to even the vegetables out and make sure that we have a nice connection between the veggies and the bottom of our pan. Let this cook for 4 or 5 minutes or so. What we're shooting for is tender crisp. So veggies should just start to be getting tender, but they shouldn't be soft. The onions should start to look translucent. And you should have a nice kind of browning start to occur on it. And you'll get a really nice smell as these begin to cook. If you notice your pan starting to kind of discolor and darken at the bottom, don't worry about that. Yes, there's some stuff on there that's starting to kind of brown and get overcooked. Not really overcooked, it's just starting to develop really nice flavors. Don't worry about that, that's alright. When we add in our water later, we're going to do what's called deglazing. And that water, once it hits the hot pan, is going to loosen all of this, and it's going to be really nice flavor in our stir fry. I tend to just go with the little pan flip myself. Okay, our veggies are getting a little soft now. They've got a nice browning starting to occur on the edges of some things. So now we're going to go ahead and add in our liquids. So we have our 1 cup of water here. I'm going to go ahead and add my tablespoon of soy sauce to my water. That way it gets kind of all mixed together. And then we're going to add this in. We're going to get some steam, we're going to get some bubble going here, so that's what we want. Okay. Now this is where that deglazing is going to start occurring. That hot liquid's hitting the pan, and it's going to start loosening up all that stuff that seemed like it was kind of burning on. So now I'm going to take my wooden spoon and I'm just going to kind of go around and scrape all that wonderful flavor up. And this is one of those steps where it's the difference between kind of a dish that tastes okay and a dish that really tastes like it's been cooking for a long time. It has a lot of flavors developed and built up. It's accessing all this wonderful stuff that's here that some people don't realize is a good part of the dish. We're also going to add in the seasoning packet that's in our ramen noodles. Mix that in. Okay, our liquid's just starting to come to a boil. It's kind of simmering at the moment, and now it's going to quickly pick up to our boiling point. Now what we can do is add in our ramen noodles. And you can decide how you want these to be. Do you want them to be long noodles or you want them to be short noodles? Because you can break this down into the size that you're looking for. For us, we're going to go with a little shorter noodle. So break it and then kind of break those sheets in half. And kind of nestle it down in that liquid. Okay, now we're going to drop the temp down to medium low. We don't want to continue to boil this. And we can bring our chicken back in. Now, it may not seem like there's a whole lot of liquid in here, but don't worry. It'll do what it needs to do. Okay, so we drop that temp down about medium low. We're going to keep this simmering to cook these noodles. Again, be patient. Keep kind of working it around. Make sure the noodles are down in the liquid. If you have a lid that fits your pan, you can easily at this point drop a lid on to help trap some of that steam. This can help speed up your cooking process. The lid is not necessary. It will cook just fine without it. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have it just if you like it to be a little bit more, keep some of that moisture around, have it more as a soup. Then you can leave that lid on and it'll keep that in place. If you don't have a lid, that moisture will cook out and it'll be a little bit of a drier dish. It'll be more like a stir fry rather than your ramen soup mix that you're kind of used to. So we're cooking this now just until the noodles are tender. Once those noodles are done, your dish is done. Okay. And just like that, our stir fry is done. So let's turn off the heat, plate it, and see how it tastes. We've got our plate out, ready to go. Let's dish it up. Now the nice thing again about this dish is it's super easy. All of this can be substituted. Whatever vegetables you have on hand, you can chop up, throw it in. Well, it's celery and carrots and onions, whether it's cabbage, whether it's radishes. We're starting to get to garden season, so whatever it is you grow at home, you can use as well. It's a great dish to empty out leftovers. Any meat can be used, beef, pork, seafood, whatever you like. Okay. So we'll scoop up some of this, place it in the center of our dish. Moisture on top. We can set this behind us. I personally like mine to be a little bit spicier, so just a little bit of black pepper on top. I'm also going to wrap this up just a little bit. I make a lot of stir fries at home. If you have any sesame oil at home, just a few little dashes of this on top will really take this to a whole different level, like you just bought it from a great Chinese takeout. And there you have, quick stir fry, easy to do, just as delicious as it is easy. So let's grab a fork quick and see how it tastes. Get a little bit of everything on the fork. Mmm. The chicken is tender. Vegetables are soft, but they're not mushed. It's a really nice flavor all throughout the dish, and it all tastes as one nice uniform thing. This is a really nice dish. It's really easy to make. Hopefully it's a favorite of yours, and I would really love to see you make it at home. Be sure to send me pictures and videos of your final product. And I hope you enjoy this time. This has been Cooking with Carper.